All right, I'm gonna be talking about abrupt global warming in as modeled by noncommutativity. And the last few videos I've posted have generated some interesting feedback, so I appreciate that the exchange, including the critique of global warming based on Planck's constant, and the issue here is that the entropy, as I've pointed out, is normally defined as entropy of matter, but the 2022 Physics Today article on thermodynamics of global warming emphasizes that the entropy of global warming is not just due to matter of the CO2 molecule, but rather due to just the radiation. So the Planck's constant is defined by the resonance of the light based on the angular frequency and the amplitude. And this, one of the critiques of global warming, I think his name's Paul D. Watson, and he has a fascinating explanation about Planck's constant. And the issue here again is that he's assuming you have to have matter in order to create the heat that the Planck's constant is measuring. But as I pointed out in the last video, Planck's constant is actually based on the color of light and not the temperature. And so the what's happening is that there's a divergence as an infinite limit, and so the color is changing as a way to overcome the divergence. And the reason it's changing is the same problem that Schrodinger could not answer in regards to why does an electron emit a photon when it changes the discrete energy value in an atom, in a molecule. So the quantum jump, so to speak, is a discrete resonance that's either absorbing or emitting the photon. But what's actually happening is that as Schrodinger, he ignored relativity in order to create his Schrodinger wave equation using the Hamiltonian. So it turns out if you use the polar form of the Schrodinger equation using the radians of the angular frequency, then the complex number in the Schrodinger equation has to be separated into the real and imaginary parts. And then within the imaginary part, you discover the quantum potential, that this is the basis for the Bohmian physics. And the standard quantum physics model tried to ignore the quantum potential. But what the quantum potential is the actual time reversed signal from the future. due to the imaginary phase, the imaginary number. So this is also called the quantum 2 sphere. So when you have an electron, it has a 1/2 spin. So you have the what's called the Pauli particle, which would be based on the spin, and then you have the Dirac particle, which is the relativistic quantum physics. And the problem is that when you actually collapse the wave function to make a measurement, then you have to square the amplitude. And when you square the amplitude, you're losing this quantum potential as the time reversed signal. And so this becomes the Hamiltonian as based on the limit, the infinite limit. And so what Schrödinger cannot figure out is that the color of the light is actually originating from this virtual photon. Hold on a second, let me get some water. So the virtual photon obviously cannot be seen, and the problem is that the amplitude is defined inherently by an angular frequency, assuming a spatial symmetry definition of time from symmetric geometry. And this problem originates from the concept of geometric irrational magnitude, where the octave originally was defined as 2 to the 0. In other words, you're inherently squaring the frequency. You're assuming that the octave is already squared. And what this is hiding is the inherent non-commutative time and frequency. Okay, so this is what Alain Kahn calls 2-3 infinity. Let me try some more water here. I had some salt earlier. Sorry, I got some. Okay, so okay, so what's normally called Heisenberg uncertainty in quantum physics of the position and momentum actually originates from the momentum being directly proportional to the frequency. And so it's actually originates from what's called a delocalized electron. So the Schrödinger, he had hydrogen, which only has one electron, but then when he used helium with 2 electrons, then he had to have inherently entanglement, and this is where you get the Schrödinger's cat paradox of the quantum measurement problem, because you have a superposition, but it's also inherently delocalized this is the spooky action at a distance that Einstein insisted could not be possible because it implies non-locality. And so the origin of the photon is actually due to this time reversed signal And so what non-commutativity is stating is that there's just as Roger Penrose points out, is that the origin of the energy of the sun is due to the gravitational potential as a negative entropy. And so the negative entropy is actually from a time reversed negative frequency that's inherently non-local. So in non-commutativity, this is explained as a twisted sheet, a two-dimensional sheet that's actually twisted. So you have essentially two different space-times. And this is what Louis de Broglie realized with his law of phase harmony, is that there has to be a second time from the future, just as there's linear time going forward as entropy, as an asymmetric entropy. There's also a second time from the future as negative entropy. And so then when this is converted to a space-time, it means you have to inherently have a twisted, two-sided, two-dimensional space-time that's actually a Mobius strip topology. So it would be a toroid. So this means at each 0 point in space, you already have the future and the past overlapping as what Alain Kahn calls a chord of 2 points of frequency that are measured as spectral photon frequency. So it's an inherent non-local future and the past overlapping. And what this means is, because it's this is the fifth dimension, it enables, normally in standard physics, this fifth dimension is assumed to interact only through gravity. So you have the symmetrical grand unification model, what's called supersymmetry. Supersymmetry is assuming that you have mere antimatter particles, but they only interact through gravity. Whereas in the non-commutativity, the mere asymmetry is able to then violate the conservation of energy by absorbing the virtual photons and then storing that up as an increased electron energy through the exciton negative energy holes. So this is a quantum wormhole in the fifth dimension, and it's being modeled recently. It's being modeled using graphene. So if you take a graphene is a one-dimensional hexagonal molecular structure, but if you take two graphene sheets and you create a moire pattern by shifting one, having a phase shift of 90 degrees for one of the graphene sheets, then you have you create what are called Dirac cones that are relativistic quantum wormholes, so that if you shine light on the graphene, it's able to then absorb virtual photons, which then increase the electrons, and so you're able to actually create free energy. But it's also, since it's from the future, it also has a anti-gravity force to the free energy, because the the source of the gravity is due to the negative of the time reverse signal that has a negative frequency, and so you're violating the conservation of momentum before it's translated into energy as defined by amplitude squared. So normally we think of amplitude as just cosine and sine, and this is one of the other debates I was having with somebody commenting about global warming, a critique of global warming, and I said, well, you have to study the non-commutativity math. And so when you consider amplitude and angular frequency in terms of non-commutativity, then you have a negative, you have the imaginary phase. And again, what this means is you have a delocalized, an inherent non-local electron with the future and the past overlapping. And so the sine and the cosine are not a symmetrical resonance anymore. It's a asymmetric resonance. So you have a negative sign, but it can't be visualized in a 4D space-time because of the fifth dimension. So this is what they're modeling with the graphene to demonstrate this twisted two-dimensional space-time that has an inherent twist in it at each 0 point of space-time. And this is what occurs naturally in our brains with the microtubules and the tubulin, that the microtubules are actually a metamaterial with the tubulin. So the tubulin are the twisted two layers of the graphene. So you'd have the tubulin are the moire pattern of a 90 degree phase shift of the tubulin that creates super radiance inside the microtubules. So you have a constant time reverse signal of negative entropy inside our neurons, and this is what creates proto-consciousness. That's the origin of life, and then as that builds up with the microtubules, that creates complex life on Earth, and it's inherently asymmetric. So it's left-handed amino acids, and it's due to frequency that's inherently right brain dominant, because it's the secret of music. So it's literally the secret music that's resonating the universe as a time reverse signal from the future. Again, what Louis de Broglie called the law of phase harmony. So the graphene provides a simple model of this just in a two-dimensional form, but for life itself, it is able to self-amplify into a complex 4D space-time, but it originates out of this one-dimensional graphene that's actually resonating with the fifth dimension. That's the 0 point of the future and the past overlapping, therefore inherently absorbing virtual photons and then resonating out electrons through the increased absorbed photons. So as like John G. Williamson, the physicist, explains, that the electron is actually just two photons that have a mere asymmetric gravitational mass. So the photon has a zero rest mass, but it still has due to the 1/2 spin of the electron, there's actually an inherent gravitational relativistic mass of the photon that you can think of as a 90 degree phase shift, but it's the future and the past overlapping. So this is the negative entropy as the secret of dark energy from the gravitational potential, as Roger Penrose explains, that gravitational potential is actually due to mass originating from the photon, from frequency. And so you have this quantum, what Gerard de Hoof calls the eternal black hole, as the quantum instanton in the fifth dimension. And so this is what the ecological crisis of global warming is confronting by setting back, by emitting CO2, by burning up the oil that originated from algae that had relied on delocalized electrons for photosynthesis. So it was you actually have this constant free energy of life originally through algae from hundreds of millions, from 500 million, over 500 million years ago. And what happened was this, as complex life evolved over around 538 million years ago, you had the Cambrian explosion. And this is what began the storage process of CO2. This is what sequestered CO2 and increased the oxygen levels on Earth, enabling complex life to keep evolving. And so, due to the modern science being based on decreasing the entropy of matter, we have increased the entropy of gravity by reversing space-time on Earth itself. So we're speeding up time and then destroying space as defined by the negative entropy of life, of proto-consciousness. And so essentially we're turning Earth back into a wormhole. And without realizing that the wormhole, is the original truth of reality itself, which is what our original human culture called the rainbow time, or the re-entry into original creation through the rainbow, and what they call I call it the cosmic rainbow vortex, but and you'll find this explained in near-death experiences too, where they go through this tunnel of the cosmic rainbow. And what the rainbow is a logarithmic singularity. Again, due to this infinite limit. But once you understand that logarithms themselves originate from this non-commutative time and frequency that has a different value for zero at each 0 point of space. So for each 0 point of space time, you have 2 times and 2 frequencies, with the simplest case being 2 and 3. So you have 2/3 as a C to F undertone, and then you have 3/2 as C to G overtone, and you can't put that into a symmetric space, because in order to do so, you have to use a different root tonic, which Philaeus first achieved as the origin of the Greek miracle of science, using the tetrachord 6 is to 8 as 9 is to 12. And so by doing that, he created the concept of irrational magnitude by covering up the fact that the 4/3 as the perfect fourth originated from 0 to 8 as the root tonic, for the wavelength of 6/8 as the frequency 8/6 as 4/3, and then the perfect fifth was 3/2 frequency from the wavelength 8/12 of the root tonic 0 to 12. So for the octave of the frequency of 2, you have to already assume a squaring based on the equation of what Archytas used from Babylonian mathematics of the arithmetic mean times the harmonic mean equals the geometric mean squared. So you have 3/2 as the perfect fifth as the arithmetic mean times the harmonic mean of 4/3 as the perfect fourth equals the geometric mean squared as 2, so that the tritone, which is the major second music interval, is 9/8, derived from 3/2 that is then halved symmetrically back into the same octave. So it's 3/2 as 9/4 by squaring it and then having it back into 9/8. And then you cube that to approximate the tritone as the square root of 2. And this is the original origin of the Greek miracle from the wrong music theory, because it's hiding the fact that you're using a different root tonic to achieve that 4/3 harmonic, when in fact the 4/3 originates from the non-commutative perfect fifth of 2/3 as an undertone, or 2 C to F. So the only way you can do it as a logarithm is to have a different root tonic of zero value. So the chord is 0 to 8, whereas the chord for the root tonic for the perfect fifth is 0 to 12. And so this is what is meant, is that each 0 point in space-time already has two different frequencies, and time and frequency overlapping, in order to maintain the illusion of a symmetric rest frame of space-time that then relativity relies on for the inverse square law of gravity. So that's what created our modern science attempt to decrease the entropy of matter and thereby increase the entropy, the gravitational entropy, against the inherent negative entropy of life itself. And that's a true origin of the ecological crisis, as explained by noncommutativity. So I'm just going to leave it at that, and I apologize for having to clear my throat several times. I had some unusual food earlier, but anyway, I'll leave it at that. Thanks.